I don't know if this counts as a glitch, but I certainly thought that it was weird when it happened. My dad died December 2017, and I lived with him until December the 4th when I moved out into my own one-bedroom apartment. I worked all day December the 5th, and then December the 6th was my day off, and I spent the day buying things for my new apartment and organizing. And then around noon, I had a really fast and drawn-out heart palpitation unlike anything that I've had before or since. I seriously thought that I was going to die for a moment because it lasted almost 5 seconds, which is a long time when your heart is on the fritz. After that, I had an overwhelming feeling of sadness and guilt, and I had just sat on the floor crying for a while. I couldn't explain the source of the sadness. I'm usually pretty good at pinpointing why I'm feeling a certain way, but there was just no reason for it. I texted my dad, "Hey Dad, how are you doing?" But I never got a response. The next day at around 7 p.m., my sister and I went to check on my dad because nobody had heard from him in a while. We found him in his bed, and he wasn't moving. Now, this next part may sound a bit morbid, but it is a reason I think my dad died when I had my heart palpitation and extreme feeling of sadness. My mom looked up a decomposition chart to try to calculate exactly how long he had been dead, and based on the state of the body when we found him, he would have died the day before at around noon. I won't get into specifics of what killed him, but it was related to his heart. I saw a post here recently talking about how the area that they were in seemed to be one really big glitch. I think that I've had a similar experience. Most of my life, I've lived in the middle of nowhere. Often at night, we would see flashes of light and hear people walking on our land. My dad would always go out to check and to find nobody there. The flashes of light would disappear, and when we would get close, there would be no noise after the lights were turned off. I've even had a group of friends see the person with a flashlight when we had a bonfire one night. We all panicked and told my dad. He went out all the way, and again, the light turned off and there was no noise to tell if somebody ran away. We also had the neighboring farmers' cows get out onto our property a few times, and every time they would go out, they would line our driveway perfectly and lick our cars when we would go out to get them. The whole time we lived in this location, we experienced strange phenomena and abnormal things like this, particularly with lights and cows. Any comments or thoughts about this strange activity? So last week, my family took a trip to LA to visit some other relatives of ours, other family, and we were all in a car. My sister and I were in the back seat, and we were driving in a pretty busy street, as there were people all over the place walking outside. So I see a lady in casual clothes, and behind her is a man with his son bouncing a little ball, and all of a sudden the woman and the man and the child literally walk backwards, and the ball bounces back to the little boy's hand for a good 2 seconds. And as I'm watching this, I'm in shock. I quickly turn to my sister to see if she also saw, and she looks at me and asks if I saw that too. She told me on her side of the window she saw a group of friends walk backwards all together. We were both in shock and told our parents, but they said they hadn't seen anything happen and just called us crazy. We're all having a hard time understanding what that was, and I've been trying to look into it even more. I just think that the odd part is that we were both experiencing this right at the same time, just on different sides of the car window. And just to let you guys know, no, the car didn't go backwards. It was just the people outside moving backwards. and I have no idea why my parents never saw anything or don't know what happened. I'm 19 years old and my sister is 21. So this just happened. I called my son and I said that I would be home in 20 minutes. I decided to stop at the gas station and liquor store, which is about 10 minutes in total. I got a call from him on my way home asking where I was and where I went, and I told him that I was still about 10 minutes away. Usually when I get home, I sit in my car for a few minutes to respond to messages and have a few minutes before entering the house. He said he looked out of his window and my car was parked out in front of the spot where it usually is, and then he saw me inside of it. He always comes out to greet me, so he opened the door, and as he did so and he stepped outside, the car was gone. He looked both ways down the road to see where I went. I live on a mountain in a neighborhood that doesn't have an outlet. So, for the most part, there's not many random cars, especially parked in front of my house. What's weird is that if I wouldn't have decided last minute to stop, I would have been home at about the time that he saw the car parked out in front. I have a feeling we may have just witnessed, or he may have just witnessed, my doppelganger in the car, and perhaps it was some kind of a glitch. Christmas Eve, I went out with my mother to the supermarket to buy some groceries and other things that we needed. Before leaving home, I added a very specific deodorant on the shopping list that I needed, and I even reminded my mom when we went there with 2 big full shopping carts. We arrived at the cashier and my mother asked me to put all the things onto the belt for the register so that she could look for her card or something like that. I started doing so, and I also got the deodorant out as well. After taking out some more products, I picked it up again. I instantly thought that it would be my mind playing tricks on me. But afterwards, I picked it up again from the cart for a 3rd time. I turned to my mother and asked how many deodorants she put in the shopping cart. She said that she only took one and then asked me if I had taken another one out instead. But obviously I hadn't. And that's what's so weird, because I saw myself take it out 3 times. When we came back home, we both checked again in the bags, and indeed, there was only one deodorant in all of the bags that we brought home of groceries. Glitches like that with small objects happen a lot to me, and it's been happening more and more recently. It's something that's really, really strange. I kind of think of it like maybe God or the universe is playing some kind of a trick on me and my mom. If you look in my post history, there's a post from the Well That Sucks forum on Reddit where I show the photo of my flat tire after I hit a really bad pothole. The tire iron in my car didn't even fit the jack well, and it didn't fit the lug nut on the tire at all. So we called my roommate's dad, and he swung by and helped us out with a set of tools. We had a hiccup with one of the nuts needing a key rather than the tool we were using, but it was all sorted out, and the spare tire was on, and we were able to drive home after that. So, from what it sounds like, it's a problem solved, right? We had to go 10 miles to get home. Almost exactly 3/4 of the way there, though, B, my roommate, is in the middle of a sentence talking when she stops what she's saying. And in that very moment as she stops, I blurt out, "Holy crap, that's my car." On the side of the road, mind you, as we're driving past my car. In my car. And I don't mean a car that just looks like mine. Any owner, I'm sure, would agree that you can look at hundreds of cars with the exact same make and model of your car, but you know which one is yours because you drive it so much. And that was my car parked on the side of the road. My roommate B saw it as well, and we both mentioned having the thought of Why are we over here when we should be over there? We get home safe and sound, right? No more strangeness, until my wife mentioned to me that she had been watching for more potholes, looking directly where that parked version of my car should have been. And she didn't see it. She didn't see any car there, just the side of the road. As she mentioned, I realized that I saw the light on from that car when we were behind it, but they were gone when I checked in my rearview mirror. B and I then, in separate conversations where the other wasn't involved, both spoke the same phrase. I think something really bad was supposed to happen, but we narrowly avoided it. I think we might be really lucky that we made it safe home that day. I'm a long-time lurker and first-time poster here. I always thought this was my first ghost story, but after obsessively reading this Reddit, I definitely feel like it's more of a glitch. 3 years ago, my ex-boyfriend and I lived by ourselves in one of my past apartments. It was winter and I had come home early from work. I was keeping myself busy at my desk making Christmas gifts. I love the silence, so there was no music or TV on. It's important to note that my bedroom was on the first floor. He had his own on the second floor since we had a 4-bedroom apartment all to ourselves. Being on the first floor, everything is audible, especially with my door open and no background noise. Right around his usual time home from work, the front door will open, deadbolt included, and shut behind him, and I heard him in his work boots walk up our wooden stairs. About an hour had passed, and I was wondering what he was doing up there. It wasn't unusual for him to go right upstairs and then come back down to say hi and start making dinner with me, usually 5 to 30 minutes after coming home, but never an hour later. I yelled his name and got no response. I called his phone and he didn't pick up. Less than a minute after calling, he walked through the door. We were both very into spiritualism, including the paranormal side of stuff. I told him what had happened as soon as he came home, and we searched the house together. No one was there. Our house has always had a quite pleasant and safe energy, and continued to after this happened, despite how uneasy everything felt at that time. I can't pinpoint any kind of big shift that's happened since, but this was a pretty weird glitch, and I know I've read stories like this before, and sometimes they sound like ghost stories, as I mentioned earlier, but I'd categorize this one as a glitch. So this happened to my mom and I. We both left my grandmother's house at 5:30 p.m. We were both headed in different directions, and we both remember the exact time we left because we commented about rush hour traffic and how it's going to take each of us about an hour to get home. While driving, I was listening to music and not paying attention to the time until after I parked my car and was about to call my mom that I had arrived home. I looked at the clock and it's 5:35 p.m. I called my mom and I asked her to verify the time that we left, and she said it was 5:30. So then I asked her, how in the heck did we both get home in 5 minutes when we both live about 40 minutes from my grandmother's house? She couldn't explain it, and we still think about it till now. This is the second time that I've had this kind of an experience happen to me, and it doesn't get any easier as years go by. I work at an office where my job involved mailing important documents to clients. One time, I kept getting this letter back as undeliverable 2 or 3 times, even though I double-checked the client's mailing address on file and even mailed the client to inquire about any change to the address. The client confirmed the address, so I figured that the mail delivery had to be unreliable in the area. I sent the letter again, and it was returned as undeliverable once again. Frustrated, I looked up the address on Google Maps, and it turned out to be a cemetery in a rural area. The client stopped answering my emails after that, It could have been an honest mistake where the client was having their mail delivered to an old friend's house that was demolished and turned into a cemetery, but I kind of find that hard to believe. And also, I was still definitely creeped out by that inexplicable address. So just a little bit of background on this story. My job was at a professional regulatory body that licensed individuals in their field of practice. This particular client needed a letter because it was important for official documents dealing with that person's professional career that they paid for, and that we couldn't send in an email. It had to be in the form of a letter. So that's why we kept trying to send it at a physical mailing address. I no longer work there, so I can't follow up with anything. But still, knowing that there was some kind of a cemetery involved that we were sending this letter to, for some reason just gives me chills, and it kind of creeps me out. Every time I would drive home from work, I would always check out this tiny house because I could see a library-like room with a singular chair facing the window. The house had a very specific window, so I could differentiate it from other houses in that neighborhood and in that general area. This was while I was on a second shift, so I would be driving back during the night. As I went back to the first shift, the house was no longer there, which was really strange. After seeing it so many times, it just sort of vanished into thin air. And unless they tore it down and built a new house within a couple of days, I don't have any explanation as to why that house just vanished into nothing. I know that I've seen this house many times as it's on the route to work. So I know that I'm not hallucinating or imagining things. That it was a very distinct house that is no longer there. And it just seems like from one day to the next, it was there and now it's gone. It's too strange and creepy to really think about. And after reading some of the stories on this forum, I kind of get the impression that I shifted realities. For the past few years, I would randomly repeat the past few seconds of a certain kind of an event. I never knew what that event would be until I had the experience. I really don't know how to describe this, but once I was at a park with some friends, and I saw this kid on the far side of the park fall off the monkey bars, but as soon as he fully hit the ground, everything just stopped for about a half second before he seemed to fall off the monkey bars again. It was like he just teleported back up only to fall down again. It's little stuff like this that has been happening to me a lot, and I don't know if anybody else has had similar experiences, but after finding this forum, I know that I'm not alone.